In this week's video, I'm going to talk about personal growth versus living your life and how do you find the sweet spot. This is something I've personally been thinking about a lot. I have over a decade of experience in the coaching industry, and I would say over 15 years of experience in the health industry. And so I feel like this is something that I personally have been thinking about. Like, how do you really find the sweet spot? Like, how do you be healthy and continue to grow and work on yourself and become the best version of yourself and not allow it to become this thing that stops you from really being present and living your life? Okay. Let me know if that's something that you struggle with as well. I feel like with a lot of coaches, we get on this path of always evolving and looking for the next thing. We're seekers. We're really interested in health. We're really interested in personal growth, and we probably have been. And this may stem from a lot of different things of trying to be our best selves, of being a perfectionist, of there's so many, of overcoming health challenges, right? Like, so it becomes like this tricky thing of like, where do we find the balance as far as it's actually making us and our lives better versus when this focus on this growth and so much on our health and stuff becomes something that actually can be negative or negatively impacting our life, really our enjoyment of life. And even to give like another example, I'm seeing like more and more around like, when it comes to like the health and wellness space, right? Like we could say like orthorexia, or like this obsession with like eating healthy, or I mean, now it's like, your toilet paper is poisoning you, and your clothes are poisoning you, and your water is poisoning you, and now organic food has different waxes on it that you can't avoid. And like, it's always like kind of like this next thing. And it's like, but it also in personal growth too, like, can I do this technique? And now I can do polyvagal theory, and I'm working on, hypnosis, and now it's, astrology, and, it just becomes like kind of this never ending thing of, are we always seeking that next thing? Maybe to avoid living in the present moment and really living our life, right? And there's nothing wrong with always learning and seeking and doing the best we can to live the healthiest life. But where is that balance? And I'm not going to come from a place of saying I have this all figured out. I almost wanted to talk about it more as a discussion, and I would love to hear people's comments and thoughts on this. But I was walking with a friend in the park the other day, actually even a past client of mine who's a friend, and she is in a place in her life where she's turning 40, and I turned 40 2 years ago. And I feel like this is a significant time in our life where not necessarily the age 40, but midlife, whatever that is, and kind of wherever that pops up for you, as far as a reflection of life. And we've maybe made it halfway through kind of the average expectancy of life, which is around 80 or so, right? So 40 is kind of that halfway point of reflecting on life so far, the life we've lived so far, and what that's looked like, and what we've been focused on, and what's been most important to us, where we spend our time and our attention, and how fulfilled we feel with life so far. Like, these are a lot of like really big questions, right? I have done another video on midlife because obviously this has been a topic that's coming up for me lately. I feel like when I hit 40, I hit like this energetic something where I had to look at this and address all this. And nothing like bad happened in my life, but it was really like this, just like an energetic shift where I felt like I had to kind of do this deep dive into my life so far and look at everything and figure out, based on that, what I wanted to focus on moving forward for the rest of my life, right? Which is a big topic. And so both of us were talking about this, and it was good to just kind of reflect on it, because both of us also have this question around like, how do you find the balance? Because obviously we're both coaches. We're both people who have struggled with, like, I would say maybe like eating disordered behavior in the past, and really a lot of focus on like our looks and wanting to look the best and be the healthiest and all those things. And both of us just kind of thinking back and like, you know, like, have we missed out on some of our life and enjoyment in life, and maybe just like being and chilling because we were so focused on like perfecting ourselves, different parts of ourselves, right? And I feel like this looks a bit different for everyone, but it's an interesting thing to reflect on and to think about and to look at. And, you know, are we obsessed about how we look, and are we spending so much time working out and trying to eat perfectly and eat healthy at the expense of being present and enjoying our life? And I think it's interesting to like think back about like how we've lived through the ages too, and just it becomes challenging because we live in the world we live now, where we're exposed to a lot of toxins and a lot of food that's not great, and a lot of, you know, things in the environment that we can't control, which I feel like has made everything so complicated. Whereas back in the day, you would just eat the food that you grew from the earth, and, you know, from the local market and the farmers and whatever, and you didn't have to worry about all these things. So it's also figuring out how to make all of this work within the world that we currently live in, right? Once again, I don't have a perfect answer for this, because it's always something I'm exploring and thinking about myself, but it's an interesting thing to think about. Quickly, I want to explain who I am. If you don't already know who I am, I'm Dr. Kristin Hartjes. I am a former chiropractor and functional medicine practitioner turned health coach turned business coach. I've been helping other health practitioners and coaches build businesses for a decade, which is what really brings me to this topic too. Like, not only am I in this space, but I work with other people in this space. So I'm always thinking about these things and reflecting on it. So once again, I'm not going to come from a place of like, I have this all figured out, but I want to, as I was thinking about this, I want to share a few things that I think have been helpful to me when I'm navigating, like, finding the sweet spot between these two. And this is from a place of practice, not from like, I think this is the magic answer. But the first one is just awareness, like awareness around all of this in general, awareness around where I am perfecting and where I am maybe overly focusing on things or worrying about things that are potentially taking away from me being in the present moment and really enjoying and living my life. So I think it's just like this awareness piece of how it shows up for me, and kind of knowing, how it plays into my life is a big piece for me. Really being aware of when I'm living in the present moment, and I'm present with whatever's going on for me, with me, happening, versus living in my head or like overanalyzing, overthinking, worrying, all those things. I mean, living in the present moment is such a big key to everything. I mean, to our life, right? Like, otherwise, anytime you're not in the present moment, you're literally missing out on your life, because and it's hard because we do have to plan for the future, right? Like, if we want to retire at some point, like, we have to plan as far as saving money and like, maybe buying insurance, because we have to plan for like, if something happens, like, so once again, finding the balance, like, it's tricky. There's no like perfect magic answer to this, right? Like, so how do we plan for the future? And we don't even know how long we're going to live. I don't know if I will be here tomorrow or the next day or, a number of years from now. It becomes complicated. So, Yeah, and obviously if you're eating healthy, you're planning for, obviously you're eating for yourself right now and in this moment, but also for your future self and your health. So, but finding the balance between that, and just, I think, being aware of when we are living in our heads in the past or in the future, and is that serving us or not? And maybe that's the main question. Is this serving me? Right? The other piece is that sometimes we get in this place of thinking that the future will be better than where we are right now. And so I think we miss out on living in the present because we are waiting for the future. And our future self, who's lost the weight, or who's overcome the health challenge, or who has made this certain goal in their life. Maybe they started their business, or they made this certain amount of money in their business, or they got this certain number of clients, or they got this promotion. And we think that this future moment is going to be better than this moment right now. And I do think that is a big mistake. When I did my life coach training, the person who taught it often talked about life is 50-50. And I'm not going to focus on the percentages. She was saying 50% good, 50% bad or challenging. But I do think life is always good and bad. I mean, day and night, good and evil. Like we live in a world of opposites, right? And it's what makes the world go round. It's what gives us our experience. And that life is always positive. There is always some positive and always some challenges in different parts of our life. I think the balance is different as far as percentages of challenges versus good. Like the scales may tip, but there's always some of both. And so thinking that there's going to be some moment in the future where everything is great is just not the reality, right? And so are you not living in the moment because you're waiting for some moment, some future moment that's going to be better in some way because of whatever, because you accomplished something that you think will make the future better than your life right now. So that's another thing. The next thing I want to talk about is, I think, the idea of focusing on ourselves versus focusing on others, or focusing on the world, life outside of us. And I think when we get overly self-focused, this is when we're perfecting, and this is when we are living in the past or in the future and not in the present. I think when we are with others, obviously, anytime you're alone, and this is why spending too much time alone, yes, I'm speaking to introverts, I'm an introvert as well, spending too much time alone is bad, period, because it makes you a crazy person in your head. And it's actually, recently we moved to Denver into the city from living up in the mountains. I miss a lot about the mountains, but it's been so good for us because we are around people more. And I needed that. My husband needed that. Like, we both needed that. We were spending too much time alone, right? And so when we spend too much time alone, it's easy to get really self-focused and to be thinking about ourselves and perfecting ourselves and all up in your head, versus when we're with other people, or when we're focused on other people and how we can give, how we can support, how we can be in community. The energy is off of ourselves and trying to perfect ourselves and obsessed about ourselves, and it's instead outward energy, right? So you can go into your head and you can tear yourself apart, and you don't want to do that. Or we can be living life with other people, which is what we're meant to do, right? So that outward energy. So I think that is a really important piece. And then the last piece is just really, I think, thinking about what a truly fulfilling life looks and feels like for you, for me, for you, for yourself, right? And this, once again, it becomes really tricky because I really went through this as like this midlife thing of looking at all of the conditioning that I have in my past as far as how I had been living my life up to 40, let's say, whatever age, and what really was driving me in the past. And a lot of it was around like perfection and wanting to look a certain way and to feel confident. And I thought when I looked a certain way or accomplished these certain things, then I would feel a certain way. And a lot of that also has to do with just society and what's expected and these certain like things that you have to check off your list, like, you know, education and getting married and having kids and buying a house and blah, 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 you know, like, or they may come from like religion can tell us a lot of things as far as what we should do and what makes us happy and what makes a fulfilling life too. And so you start having to go through and separate out what is true to you and what you really want and what really makes you happy and fulfilled versus what we've been taught or told by society or by religion or by academia or like whoever, government, the news, marketing, whatever. Like there's so much out there, right? Like so much that we see and kind of gets imprinted into us growing up, as far as what we should be doing with our lives and what it looks like to be successful and happy versus the reality. And so I wish I could say this is an easy process, but once you start doing this and looking at this, your brain kind of explodes a little bit. Okay. So it's a good thing to do and good luck because it's super fun. No, it's just, you start to realize how complicated things are, how complicated life is as far as just all the things, right? Because there's no right answer. There's no right way to do things. And I think this is where, okay, now I'm getting on a bit of a political tangent, but a lot of times we think in politics or in solving the world's problems that there's a simple answer and a right way, and there isn't. Everything is more complicated than that. And there's no one right way. And so it just becomes complicated, period. So anyways, and obviously fitting, when you do figure out like what I really want versus all the conditioning and all those things, then you also have to figure out how you actually fit that into the world that we live in now. So like, you know, you might be like, I don't want to do all these things to make money and to whatever, but then it's like, we do need money to live and to live maybe a way that we want to and to have the opportunities that we want to have. And once again, there's no simple answer, there's no right or wrong, but it's all good things to just look at and to explore. And then once again, finding the balance between all the things, right? Finding the balance between making money versus doing it in a way that feels good and making sure that you find the balance between all the things. And then the other thing, last thing I'm going to mention is looking at, I think, and it's always been helpful to me to kind of like write out and do some journaling and some thinking about the different areas of my life. So you can kind of split it up into like career, family, health, friends, community, fun, adventure, travel, health. Did I mention health? I did mention health. Finances, like kind of all the different areas of your life, and like write out actually maybe what your values are for each one. What's most important to you, what your vision is, what truly would look and feel fulfilling for you. Once again, separate it out from what you've been told it should look like or feel like versus what is real for you. But I think it can be a helpful exercise. So those are my thoughts. It isn't necessarily like a one right answer, but it's the things that I have found helpful when I reflect on really like personal growth or, you know, health versus living your life and finding the sweet spot, finding the balance. But I'd love to hear your thoughts. Like, what are your thoughts on this? Let me know in the comments. anything that you have found helpful, anything you especially struggle with when it comes to this, any questions you have for me when it comes to any of this, because obviously I've done a fair amount of thinking and reflecting on it, but let me know. And if you're here, which I think you probably are, because you are working on building a business and you want to dive deeper into the 5 steps to really build a successful coaching business as an introvert, yes, specifically speaking to my introvert friends, I have a video that walks you through that. It's a brand new training I made. I'm gonna link it below this video so you can check it out. And that's it. I wanna thank you so much for joining me. Let me know your thoughts. I'm interested to hear them, and I will see you in the next video.